Also known as the A-Wing starfighter, the Orak tactical strike fighter was a long-serving snub fighter design which saw service over a period of some 4,000 years with the naval forces of the Old Republic, as well as many sector and planetary defense forces, only being withdrawn from service some decades prior to the outbreak of the Clone Wars with most navies. Though in some very isolated parts of the galaxy, the type remained in use for far longer. In its original variants, the fighter measured in at just over 9 meters long, was 5 wide and 2 meters tall, with an armament consisting of 2 heavy laser cannon and 2 torpedo launchers, with 6 torpedoes carried in a small magazine. The craft had a single pilot, and initially lacked the hyperdrive and shields, common to later fighters, though later iterations of the Orak would add these features while also greatly increasing the cost of the fighter. The Great Sith War of 3996 BBY and its aftermath had seen much of the galaxy embroiled in a conflict of unparalleled scale, not matched since the Great Hyperspace War of a millennium prior. During the conflict, the potential utility of starfighters as screens for friendly capital ships and anti-missile platforms had been demonstrated amply, and the Republic had introduced the Starsaber XC-01 to perform these missions in concert with the rest of the fleet. The XC-01 had been designed pre-war for the duties of intra-system patrol ship, but found itself pressed into new roles as the conflict ground on throughout the galaxy. And while the basic design proved itself during the war, it did so with notable deficiencies in performing the roles that it was pressed into. With the conflict over, the Republic fleet began seeking a replacement for the XC-01, and the Generation Tomorrow starfighter program was begun in 3991 BBY. Calling for the development of a next-generation fighter which represented a quantum leap forward in capability in fighters for the Republic fleet at the time. So intensive were the requirements of the program, and so stringent their standards, that no private company would be able to properly answer the call, and design a submission which was even accepted for trials. This would eventually lead to the decision by the Republic fleet to design and build the fighter they desired themselves under the authority of Republic Fleet Systems, which was a company created several centuries earlier to construct targeting systems, shield generators, and other high technology for the fleet, which private firms struggled to produce in suitable quantity and quality for the Republic Navy's needs. When this decision was announced in 3988, a fury erupted almost immediately as other companies throughout the Republic accused the Navy of using the submission process to get examples of their latest designs before combining them for their own in-house design, which meant they did not owe anything to the companies for their proprietary technologies, designs, and time. This fury would die down somewhat when the Navy announced their intention to license out production of the new fighter to various companies, this being due to the fact that RFS did not have suitable production capacity in-house to meet the needs of the Navy, as well as the large number of member worlds' own local defense forces which would likely want the ship. With the potential of juicy contracts waved in front of them, most of these companies abandoned their earlier complaints and began preparing for these large promised orders. The Orak would enter service with the Republic fleet in a gradual rollout in the decades prior to the outbreak of the Mandalorian Wars, which occurred in 3976 BBY. By this point, the fighter had begun its second generation of development. This second gen seeing improvements in the fighter's firepower in the form of new and improved weapons, better armor over the craft's vitals, and longer range thanks to new engines. The next generation of Orak would go on to serve well during the nearly constant period of warfare lasting between the start of the Mandalorian Wars and the conclusion of the Great Galactic War in 3653 BBY. During the conflict, the fighter would see nearly constant improvements and revisions made to it in order to incorporate lessons learned from the fighting, as well as to better its fighting capacity and survivability. So ubiquitous would the Orak be by the end of the wars that the fighter would go on to enjoy almost universal adoption during the next 500 years of relative peace, the craft being employed by almost all military and law enforcement organizations across the Republic during this heyday. Despite the age of the craft, the Orak would continue to see service even during the millennia-long New Sith Wars, lasting from roughly 2000 BBY until roughly 1000 BBY, when the craft would again serve the Republic well despite grinding attrition against Sith forces, which would act as the greatest test that the Orak would endure during its long service life. The New Sith Wars would be the most destructive conflict in galactic history, resulting in wide swaths of the galaxy being reduced to a nearly pre-industrial state due to the intensity, breadth, and duration of conflict which occurred. And despite the introduction of more modern fighters in the Republic fleet during the millennia and a half since its introduction, the Orak would prove to be ideal for this conflict. This was due to the craft's old-style technology and time-tested design, which made the fighter simple to operate in even the most difficult and basic of situations. Everywhere from the high-tech hangar of a Republic cruiser to a mud brick village on a planet with no name would have the potential for a suitably trained ground team to adequately maintain a squadron of Oraks. When the fighting eventually came to an end, with the Republic and Sith forces essentially ground into dust, the Orak would remain, but its days of widespread service were numbered. With the Rausan Reformation underway in the years following the end of the war, the Republic fleet would demilitarize rapidly, and what ships it did keep would be of significantly more modern vintage than the aged Oraks still in stockpiles. Though the type would remain in service in very isolated defense forces, private militaries, pirate gangs, and in the service of racing teams, bounty hunters, collectors, and other individuals until even after the fall of the Galactic Empire. For millennia serving as a frontline starfighter and defender of the Galactic Republic, the Orak-class starfighter would undergo enormous changes during its lifetime to remain competitive in a rapidly changing galaxy where the only thing which was certain through the millennia was that the Republic faced grave dangers and needed defending from those who would replace its democracy with their own oppressive tyranny. The fighter's contribution to the survival of the Republic in this period cannot be overstated, nor ignored. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, do all the things that professional YouTubers tell you to do. Like it, comment, subscribe to the channel. We did actually hit 1,701 subscribers the other day, which I thought was very, very funny. Gear shift here from Star Wars to Star Trek. Of course, that's the registry number of Kirk's Enterprise. And I think that's just a really, really cool milestone to hit. It doesn't mean anything. It's not as flashy as 2 million subscribers or 2 billion subscribers or whatever Mr. Beast has going on. Is it Mr. Beast or Mr. Beast Boy? Anyway, very, very much a small number, but, 1,701 of you, that kind of cracked me up when I woke up and saw that, and I shared it in a community post the other day as well. But yeah, we now have like 1,705, and the magic ended. So that does not mean don't subscribe if you want to, because we're past that hurdle. But I just thought I would share.